Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City's Public Agenda Briefing Forum. My name is Councillor Margaret Thomas, and as Mayor, I will be chairing this forum. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on this evening and share this message from the elders. Kaya kaya Burdias, Marmanyoks Kulanga, Nuna de Mort, Nitchikulan Nalamaya Kalamunda Budja, Yayi, Nandurapan, Wajilas Kulan, Jina, Nuna da Nitcha, Nunga Budja, Nunga Burdias Kura, Yayi, Borda, Cadillac, Burda, Kaya, Yunga. Hello, welcome to our leaders, men, women, family members who have come to our place today. And I'm happy to see you standing on Noongar land of their leaders, past, present and future. Thank you. The operation of this forum is in accordance with the City's adopted Public Agenda Briefing Forum policy and procedure and is governed by the provisions of the Local Government Act, Standing Orders and Rules of Conduct. This Agenda Briefing Forum will provide the opportunity for elected members to be informed and seek additional information on matters prior to the presentation of these items to the next ordinary meeting of Council for consideration and decision. This meeting is also live streamed and I would like to welcome those watching remotely. I thank you for your interest. Are there any apologies and leave of absence, CEO?
Yes, there are a number of apologies tonight. We've got Councillor Giardina apologising, we've got Councillor Sewell, Councillor Mary Cannon and Councillor Kelly Miskovich. All apologies tonight.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest?
Through the Chair there is a declaration from Councillor Billich in regard to item 10.4.3, payment of conference registration fees, declaring a direct financial interest. She's a mentor in this program, hence her attendance, so she won't be participating in the voting next week.
Thank you. Announcements by the member, I will do those at the ordinary council meeting. Public questions will be allowed and received following the presentation of the report, as will public statements. There are no public submissions received in writing. There are no petitions received. There are several confidential items where the attachments are confidential. So we move on to the reports. And the first report, Control of Cats Local Law, is presented by James Wickens, Manager, Environmental Health and Community Safety. Thank you, James.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors and members of the public. So tonight's first report, 10.1.1, is the Control of Cats Local Law 2022. There we go. Okay. I've been stitched up, I did not do that.
That's rather cute.
That is good, that is good, that is very funny. Okay, so the purpose of the report is to consider the outcome of the public submissions. There was a lot of public submissions on this one, so a total of 143 were received, along with 500 comments on social media. Following a review of the submissions, the City has made changes to the local law which we consider to be significant and therefore require the City to re-advertise. Okay, so the City prepared a report from a notice of motion back in July of 2020 with details and recommendations in relation to the possibility of introducing cat local laws. In November 2020, Council requested that the Chief Executive Officer to progress with the preparation of the local law, and in December of 2021, Council received the draft local law and resolved to advertise for public submissions. Overall, the public sentiment on the proposed local law differed, with both negative and positive comments. Overall, 59% of submitters rate the draft local law either good or great, with 25% rating poor or very poor and 16% neutral or unsure. One submission received from the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries noted some typographical errors, changes to phrasing, and importantly recommended removal. Yeah. This is, yeah. Removal of section 2.3, control of cats in places that are not public. So the reason for this, the advice from the Department of Local Government was that the Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation has previously objected to a similar clause and have requested they be removed. Okay. So the City also received quite a few submissions from the public regarding additional reserves that we had not previously considered and identified as prohibited, and they requested that they also be included. On review, most of the reserves raised were either not under the City's management or regarded as local areas. However, one reserve, being Coral Road Reserve in Kalamunda, was considered to be of value and was added to the prohibited list. So the addition of that one reserve and the removal of clause 2.3 are considered to be significant changes and therefore is recommended to recommence the local law making process and re-advertise the local law for a further 6 weeks. So the recommendation of the report is to note the submissions received from the public and the department, to give local public notification that council proposes to re-advertise the new local law, being the City of Kalamunda keeping and control of CATS Local Law 2022. 3, note a copy of the proposed local law will be available at all Kalamunda libraries, administration office and on the City's website. 4, note further submissions about the proposed local law may be made to the City of Kalamunda throughout the 6-week publication period and take into consideration on completion of the notice period. And lastly, notes that the purpose of the proposed local law is to make provisions about cats not being a nuisance, prescribing where cats are prohibited, and the number of cats kept on premises, and B, the effect of the proposed local law is to extend the control over cats which exist under the Cat Act 2011. Is there any questions?
Councillors, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you for your presentation. Very amusing. I just have a question on behalf of Alfie Ritchie, who lives in one of those prohibited areas. Can I just clarify that this is not retrospectivity? So if a cat, i.e. Alfie, currently lives there in a prohibited area, is he okay to stay?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Ritchie. So the prohibited areas are reserves, so not private property.
Sorry, I meant to clarify, when you talked about the areas that abound those ones, that was my understanding, is if you live in an area that abuts one of those, therefore you couldn't have a cat in that area. That's the way I read it. Is that not the case?
That is not correct. So the cat can't enter into the prohibited area, which would be the reserve behind the fence, so to speak. But the cat's obviously allowed to be on the private property. Yeah.
Other questions, councillors? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In point 15, can you just expand or help me understand what does the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries rejected one of the clauses? What was the effect of that? Control of cats in places that are not public.
Thanks for your question, Councillor O'Connor. So the advice from the Department of Local Government was simply that clause 2.3 provides that a cat must not be on any private property without explicit consent from the property owner. The Delegated Legislation Committee has previously objected to similar clauses and requested they be removed. So based on that advice, we've removed it from the local law.
Are there any other questions? I have a question. Quite a few people objected to this. What was the main objections, please?
Thank you for your question, Madam Mayor. A lot of the objections were probably in relation to either the local law not being hard enough on cats and on the control of cats, but similarly there were also objections with the local law also being too tough on cats, so kind of a bit of both. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Cooper.
Sorry. Look, I may have asked this the last time this law was originally drafted. Permit to keep 3 or more cats. So if someone now has 3 cats, do they require a permit, or will that be for going forward?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Cooper. So the local won't be retrospective in that sense. So if you've got 3 cats registered now, that would be okay. But if one of those cats were to pass away, for example, you wouldn't then be able to register a 3rd cat to that property. Yeah.
If there's no more questions, we will ask the manager to go on to 10.1.2 regarding the Bushfire Advisory Committee.
So the next report is 10.1.2. So it's the report from the Bushfire Advisory Committee on the establishment of the Pickering Brook Volunteer Bushfire Brigade. So the purpose of the report is for Council to consider the recommendations from the Bushfire Advisory Committee meeting on the 21st of July 2022 to establish a Pickering Brook Volunteer Bushfire Brigade. So the City has pursued expansion on the Pickering Brook town site for the past 10 plus years. A working group and task force has been established by the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to investigate expansion of the town site. And the City, in considering the new tourism opportunities and expansion, has investigated the benefits of building a new fire station and establishing a brigade in Pickering Brook. So in June 2021, a consultant was engaged by the City to undertake a feasibility report into the establishment of a bushfire brigade at Pickering Brook and its location being George Spriggs Reserve. The feasibility study also included community engagement with a community information session and a survey, and where 94.7% of persons surveyed supported the new fire station and 89.4% supported the location of the fire station. So the study recommended that Pickering Brook Volunteer Bushfire Brigade should be established in the area, be a modest 2-base station located at George Spriggs Reserve. So it's proposed that the brigade will initially operate from the Kalamunda Volunteer Bushfire Brigade Station in Wollaston and draw on an inaugural membership of about 8 volunteer firefighters from the current membership. Once the fire station is constructed and open, the Pickering Brook volunteers will transition over. Capability in the first instance will be 1 light tanker with the addition of a 2.4 fire appliance once the station is open. The appliances will be relocated from the Kalamunda Volunteer Bushfire Brigade, which will be cost neutral. It is understood there are some concerns raised by the existing Kalamunda Volunteer Bushfire Brigade members regarding the reallocation of appliances between Kalamunda and Pickering Brook. As part of that process and change management, implementation of a brigade working group to address for information integration and transition to a new brigade and station will be required and supported. And Council will be able to maintain oversight of this process through reporting that will occur through the Bushfire Advisory Committee. So the cost to build the station is estimated to be between 1.5 to 2 million, noting that actual costs will depend on the year that funding is available. Funding for the station is available through the Emergency Services Levy under the Local Government Grant Scheme. However, items such as site works and associated external works, estimated to be around $500,000, are not covered and will need to be funded through alternative funding sources. So the recommendation is to note the City of Kalamunda Bushfire Advisory Committee minutes and the recommendation to establish the Pickering Brook Volunteer Bushfire Brigade, and to endorse the City of Kalamunda's Bushfire Advisory Committee's recommendation to establish the Pickering Brook Volunteer Bushfire Brigade. Are there any questions?
Councillors, questions? Are we confident that we'll be able to fund the $500,000 to do the site works?
Yes, thank you for your question, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm confident that we'll be able to seek alternative funding arrangements to cover that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, councillors? Thank you very much, Manager. We now go to Gary Ticehurst, Director of Corporate Services, to talk about the change in valuation method.
Very good. Can I start? Good evening, councillors and members of the community. I have three reports this evening. The first one relates to a change in valuation methodology for rateable properties. The second one is a quarterly business plan, corporate business plan quarterly report. And then the final one is Lions Lookout, which Mandy Skeets will talk to. So I'll kick off in the first instance. So report 10.3.1 relates to a change in valuation method. And the purpose of the report is to support the approval for a change in valuation from unimproved UV to gross rental value GRV for lots 1, 120 Pomeroy Road, Wollaston, and lots 4, 405 Canning Road, Wollaston. So by way of a bit of background, the owners of 120 Pomeroy Road, Wollaston approached the city's rates department and sought a change of valuation for their property on the basis that it's no longer used for rural purposes, and requested consideration for it to be reviewed, its valuation as a GRV or gross rental value. Following on from that request, the city also noted 4 surrounding properties, and those properties were assessed initially as possibly being subject to re-evaluation as well. I can say that following those 4 investigations, there was only one of those properties that actually necessitated a change in value from rural to GRV. So importantly, the resultant change will result in a reduction of rates revenue of $3,257 per annum. Sorry, I didn't press forward. Oh, I've lost the. So it's recommended. Oops. So it's recommended that council supports the Minister for Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries in changing the valuation method to those properties from UV to GRV for 120 Pomeroy Road and 405 Canning Road, Wollaston.
Councillors, do you have questions? If not, we'll move on to the next report, also by the Director of Corporate Services, the quarterly update.
So the purpose of this report is to provide council with the progress on the City of Kalamund's achievement against our corporate business plan for 2022-26, and it's for the reporting period July to September 2022. Kalamunda Achieving Corporate Business Plan was actually endorsed by council at the special council meeting on the 27th of June 2022. So refreshing, the corporate business plan articulates those major projects, including capital works, operational projects, recurrent services for the city. The projects and services are linked to a whole range of related strategies and plans, such as the asset plans, long-term financial plan, workforce plan, among others. As at the end of the first quarter for the reporting period, actions on average were tracking at 27% completion compared to 25% target for the first quarter. On that basis, it's therefore recommended that council note the quarterly report for the period July to September 2022, pertaining to the business plan 22 to 26.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions, councillors? We'll now ask Mandy Skeets, Manager of Economic and Cultural Services, to talk to us about 10.3.3 Lions Lookout.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors, members of the public. Tonight I'm going to talk to you regarding 10.3.3 Reserve 49560, known as Lions Lookout. The purpose of this report is to consider whether the City of Kalamunda as management body of the reserve, more commonly known as Lions Lookout, is supportive of a request from the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to confirm its support of three things. A proposed bistro at Lions Lookout. B, the excision or removal of an area of the reserve to facilitate the proposed bistro, and the direct lease of the excised portion from the Minister of Lands, Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to the applicant. Just a bit of background with regards to this. Lions Lookout is Reserve 49560, which is Crown land which is set aside for the purposes of recreation. The City holds a management order over the reserve with the power to grant licences up to 10 years, with the prior written consent from the Minister of Lands. The Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage has received a business case from Mr Nicholas Smeets, the owner of Travelling Snack Restaurant, seeking to establish a bistro restaurant on part of Lions Lookout, the part that we're looking to excise. A copy of his business case has been provided for you as confidential attachment number 1. Little bit of background. DPLH have requested that the City indicate whether we're supportive of the development of the bistro at Lions Lookout subject to planning considerations, an excision of the portion of the reserve to facilitate a direct lease between the applicant and DPLH. The City has advised the applicant that there are a number of planning matters that would need to be addressed. Significant traffic management issues need to be addressed resulting from road safety concerns. The City has also developed a concept plan to mitigate some of the road safety issues. Traffic concept plan would likely require the excision of land from Coorong National Park, requiring parliamentary approval. This is DBCA land. All costs associated with this development are to be funded by the applicant. So, coming to the recommendation, it's recommended that the Council support the proposed bistro at Reserve 49560, more commonly known as Lions Lookout, and the excision or removal of an area of the reserve. The direct lease of this excised portion from the Minister and Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to the applicant to facilitate the proposed bistro subject to the following conditions. So we do have a number of conditions. The applicant to pay all costs of and incidental to the proposed bistro, an existing amenity that needs to be relocated or replaced. The applicant to pay all costs and incidental to the proposed excision or removal of an area of Reserve 49560 to facilitate the proposed bistro, including but not limited to survey costs and document preparation and lodgement costs. The excision to only occur if and when a development approval has been granted in respect of the proposed bistro at Reserve 49560. Note that the support of this proposed bistro contained in the resolution is given by Council in its capacity as the management body of the reserve. The development application is a separate process, and this resolution shall not fetter the City of Kalamunda in performing its statutory obligations as planning authority or exercising any discretion. Number 3, proceed to undertake necessary works to seek the excision of part of the Reserve 47881 to facilitate a future relocated entry and exit road to Reserve 49560, noting that this excision is necessary for allied road safety concerns.
Councillors, I remind you not to ask questions about the confidential attachments. However, if you have any questions about the main body of the report, please feel free to ask them. But before we do that, I would just like to go to the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just speaking on behalf of Councillor Cannon, who called me today and had a conversation about this item. Councillor Cannon would like to let Council know that she will be foreshadowing an alternative motion to this report come the ordinary Council meeting. She's she's saying that the city requests the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to undertake an expression of interest process to ensure that there are no other parties that may want to undertake a venture at Lions Lookout site, believing that this would be a fair, open and transparent approach to any development at that site. That's her view, and so you can be expecting an amendment to that effect come the ordinary council meeting.
Thank you, CEO. Councillors, do you have any questions for the manager? Councillor Stallard.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. That raises a few other questions, but we'll go to the ones at the moment. There was an indication in the notes that about a bit of concern about the location requested. Are there and would there be other positions or better positioning for us to accommodate the location that was requested by the applicant?
Manager?
I'll take it.
Oh, thank you, Director.
Through the chair, this report only addresses the request as it relates to that particular site. It would be up to any operator to reach out to the city's team if it was wanting to have investigations into an alternate site or sites.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up question, or different question, sorry, but there was a note that we would need to change the access egress for the Lions Lookout. Were we considering, would we be considering doing something of that, whether there was an application or not? Because that traditionally has been a problem area in the past for us.
I'll go to the Director of Asset Services.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you, Councillor, for that question. If you note the last dot point in the recommendation, if I get to there, please bear with me. Got the exact wording.
Page 40.
Page 40. Number 3, proceed to undertake necessary works to seek the excision of part of Reserve 47881, which is Coorong National Park, to facilitate a future relocated entry and exit to Reserve 49560, Lions Lookout, noting that this accession is necessary for allied road safety issues. So the clear intent of Council, of the administration, is we want to proceed with that from a road safety perspective anyway.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. This is one a bit out of left field, Mandy. Lions Lookout, I presume it's called Lions Lookout because Lions had something to do with putting facilities and things there. I'm just wondering if they have had anything to say about this and whether what we're proposing in any way affects what they may have actually put there, hence the reason for Lions Lookout, I guess.
Through the chair, thank you for your question, Councillor Ritchie. I am aware that Mr Speets has been in contact with the Lions Club. You're quite correct that they did have quite a bit to do with the maintaining of the Lions Lookout, certainly in initial stages, but we ourselves have not actually approached the Lions Club, so we would need to do that.
Councillors, are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Manager. There is no presentation on 10.3.4, so I would like to invite Amberly Bradley, Coordinator of Community Development, to come and talk to us about the youth plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair, good evening to councillors, staff and other community in attendance. Tonight I'll be presenting on the draft 5-year Kalamunda Futures Youth Plan with the purpose of seeking council endorsement to take this draft plan out for community comment. This plan's focus not only aligns with the City of Kalamunda's overall strategic direction, but also incorporates updated data from the National Census, the Australian Early Development Census, other state-released plans, and the 9-month-long community consultation. So this consultation ran between April of last year and January of this year, which included a survey of 3 separate demographics with 329 submissions, 186 mini-survey submissions, and 12 face-to-face consultations and workshops with community, the City's Youth Advisory Committee, Youth Action Kalamunda, and school students in order to capture a broad view of what youth priorities exist in our community. These key priorities included healthy peer and family relationships, well-being, specifically in relation to identity, connection and belonging, the learning, including general life skills, and the awareness of what opportunities do exist within our community. The key concerns included environmental protection and climate change, safety and succeeding in school in relation to how to obtain different pathways for employment or further training once young people leave school. So this consultation led us to create the following 4 focus areas. So empowered, where young people are given the tools and support to find their purpose. They are connected, so informed and part of a community network. Active, so they are involved and have participation and engagement opportunities to become active citizens, and are represented, so considered by our internal business areas and council when making decisions for the community. So this new plan has broadened its scope from the previous youth plan to include actions specifically targeting early years and children as well as young people, to reflect action already being taken in these areas, and strategises the city's support for local families as a collective. So this plan has been workshopped multiple times with the city's Youth Advisory Committee as well as the community, and so we're hoping Council will endorse this draft to go out for community comment to gain their perspective and see if it accurately captures what they told us during the consultation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do you have any questions for Amberley? Councillor Cooper.
Thanks, Amberley. And I must say, the youth guys, you all do such a good job whenever I go out, to different events, and yeah, you do such a good job out there. I think I read it was 31% of under 25s live in the city, so that's like a large number. With our committees, I thought I read somewhere in one of the reports, was that of trying to get young people onto the committees so that they're having a say in what's happening in the future. Is that something that we could be looking at?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Yes, so as a part of Focus Area 4, as representing young people within council decisions, that is a specific action, is to try and advocate for young people to be members of the city's advisory committees, in addition to just Youth Action Kalamunda.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Thank you very much, Amberley. We now move on to Kalamunda Advancing Strategic Community Facilities Plan, and we'll go to our Chief Executive Officer, Rhonda Hardy.
I think the thing that changes it around. Okay. So thank you, councillors. I have the pleasure of introducing, in my view, the most important report, an exciting report that this council's ever had to preside over. Certainly in the 11 years I've been here, it's very much timely to see this particular plan come to fruition after a decade or so of working on all of our major facilities and looking at where that future vision of the city should land itself. Certainly we are seeking council to support this report, to put it out to the community for community consultation now that we have brought it together in one report under a very big picture for the next 20 years for the city to pursue. The plan outlines all the major upgrades to key parks, roads, cycleways across the city, as well as its vision for developing key tourist sites and destinations. The intention also for major community facilities and hubs to be built, and also the intention for the rationalisation of those facilities that are no longer fit for purpose or are underutilised, have reached the end of their useful lives, to be replaced by new modern community facilities. Some projects have since already been funded under this plan. close on $100 million. Overall, this plan is looking at around $300 million worth of potential developments across the city. So we are a fair way there with the money that we've already raised through strong advocacy. We've been running very strong advocacy now for the past probably 6 or 7 years. We're doing that quite well through our strategy since becoming a city. So this plan now will really form the basis of our ongoing advocacy program. If everything is laid out, it's just a matter of getting that money in to build and develop these projects. The plan, obviously, there will be emergence as time goes on. There will be tweaks and changes as we talk to the community and we find out different ways of approaching our big picture projects. So as they evolve and change, we will review our plan on an annual basis and tweak it and make sure that it is very relevant to the community. There are 27 strategic projects identified in this plan throughout the entire city. We've presented it in pictures. We have also developed a video as well as a 10,000 word report that sits behind it all. The big picture for the city shows what we plan to design, build and construct in each of our wards throughout the hills and the foothills. They comprise of community, the Woodlapine Community Hub, things like the All Abilities Playground in Forestfield, the construction of Cambridge Reserve and aged care. We have the Kalamunda Road Upgrade Project there, the High Wycombe Community and Aquatic Hub Centre, the civic potential for civic facility around the train station, Fleming Reserve, upgrade into a district level park, and Scott Reserve upgrades with their facilities. Likewise, in the hills area, we have the Kalamunda Tourism Project, which is the redevelopment of this site and aged care potentially. We have the Kalamunda Cultural Hub to redevelop in and around the Kalamunda Library. We have the Kalamunda Street upgrades, which we've already completed one, and we have a couple more to do. We have Stirk Park, which is just about to go to tender. We have the Zigzag Scenic Drive as one of our tourism destinations that we'd like to see development on, as well as the master plan down at Maida Vale Reserve. In the also in the East-South-East ward, we are going to redevelop Wollaston Waste Hub into state-of-art facility for our waste management. We have the Rayowen Master Plan, which has expansions for the courts and the ovals, as well as a redevelopment of Les Murdy Hall. We have a vision for the Pickering Brook Hub, to build a new hub out there for the growth and development of that particular area, as well as development of Lions Lookout potentially. We've heard about that report tonight. There is potential there. And also to develop our sites down at Whistlepipe Gully and develop our cycle pathways. So all of these projects have been the culmination of master planning, investigations and ideas that we've now put together into one big picture. So our community can see what our vision is. Obviously, what came through our survey earlier this year, when asked the question to the community, do you understand the vision of the city? The results are very low. Not many people actually knew what our vision was. And whilst we have a vision that says, you know, we're connected communities, caring for nature and building the future together, our community is not connected to a motherhood statement. The community want to know what we plan to do, when we plan to do it, how we plan to do it. So now this gives a very, very clear picture about what we want to do, why we want to do it, and how we want to do it. And We're hopeful that by putting this out into the community, we will get some good feedback, some engagement, and a really clear level of understanding from our community whether they want to redevelop and redesign the city into a 21st century city for the future generations that come, or whether they are just wanting to stay with old facilities that have really reached their useful life and their use by date. So the Strategic Community Facilities Plan outlines 10 facilities that will be considered for rationalisation, redevelopment or repurposing. They're all outlined in there, and obviously this will be the part of the plan that will have contention around it, because some of those facilities people will be attached to and not want to see them, changed or anything. So that there's, with every decision there are compromises, and I think that this entire report is about the future of Kalamunda. Community engagement is going to be absolutely extensive. We are planning to get meaningful input on this from our community about what they think about the big picture, what they think is missing from the plan, what else do they need to know about aspects of the plan. And we're going to do this through drop-in sessions, information sessions, workshops, launches, feedback online, focus groups. We really do want to use this as a big opportunity to infiltrate the community, particularly our silent majority. We hear a lot from, some people, but there's a lot of people out there we don't hear a lot from. So this is a great opportunity to really find out from those families, those children, the youth of our community, is this the kind of future that they want to see? Are these the types of facilities that will give them their needs and wants into the next 80 years? So we're recommending that we put this out for community consultation and we see how we go, councillors. Any questions?
This is a big report, councillors. Councillor Ritchie.
Look, I commend Rhonda and the city for coming up with this very forward-thinking project. I like the engagement process, but I just wonder in this instance, and I know you're somewhat adverse to this at times, but is there the possibility of this one going to all households? Because it is such a big one, people do seem to be able to avoid going to the public consultation ones and all those sorts of things. At least whether it's worth thinking about a budgetary figure for it, because then at least we can say, well, everyone got a copy of it, because people often say to us, we didn't know.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if it's such a big thing, whether we might give some consideration to a mail out.
CEO?
Thank you. Yes, I totally support that view in terms of getting that into the homes, and we will look at how we do that, and if we need money, we'll come back through midterm review.
Other questions, councillors? Thank you very much, CEO. You must have presented well both before and today for us not to have questions. Can we now move on to the ward and representation review?
Okay, item 10.44, ward and representation review. So this is the follow-up report from last month. Last month you dealt with this matter. Now, the purpose of the report this month is really to seek your approval to issue the discussion paper, which you authorised me to develop at last month's meeting. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to make decisions about what's in the discussion paper yet. That will come later. First of all, we need to hear from the community as part of the official local government prescribed process. So you'll recall last month you requested that I go away and prepare a discussion paper, including all appropriate options for consideration at this month's meeting. And whilst we only need to issue this for 6-week period, I'm suggesting we put it out for 8 weeks to cover off the 2 weeks that people are away for Christmas. And we can still work with that within our timeframes that the Minister have given us. The provisions that enable us to do this are Schedule 2.2 of the Local Government Act, And it specifically says that when we are looking to specify or change the number of officers of our council or wards, we have to have regard to communities of interest, physical and topographical features, demographic trends, economic factors, and ratio of councillors to electors in various wards. So this is really the crux of the discussion paper that is attached to this report. We've spent a fair bit of time explaining as best we can what we think under each of the options, what are the impacts of those elements around community of interest, demographics, etc. And we have come up with a number of proposals that examine what the council is currently working with under its current structure, what are those elements and how and why those elements would change if we were to take on a different type of a ward structure or a no ward structure. That's yet to be concluded. So in the discussion paper, we offer 3 proposals: no wards, 2 wards, 4 wards. And under the 2 wards, we've come up with 2 options where we would abolish all the current wards and create hills and foothills wards. The difference between these, as you'll see, if you look in the detail of the report and the mapping of these wards, is about which suburbs go in where. There is tweaking and differences, and it gives different variations on the councillor to elector numbers. So you'll need to look closely at those, as would the community. Likewise, with the 4 wards, we've got an option 1, which is retaining exactly what we've got. And you'll see that what we've raised in there is the growth in one particular ward that is getting very, very close to the 10% bar, what we can't cross. So that's why we've put in an option 2, which addresses that councillor to elector ratio as another option. So that's what we've come up with, and we're very keen to see what the community might want to come up with now when they complete their submissions against the particular paper. And for them to do that, if you adopt this paper on the 22nd of November, we will advertise it and get it out by the 25th. We'll have them all back by the 20th of January, and we'll be bringing the information and recommendations back to a special council meeting on the 7th of February. So that way we can meet our deadline of getting council's preferred option to the 10th of February deadline to the advisory board. Questions? Thank you.
Councillors, questions? There appears to be no questions, so let's move on to 10.4.5, also by the Chief Executive Officer, the Organisational Structure and Capacity Review.
Yes, I've had a very busy month. So this has actually been 8 months worth of work. It's been a big job to take a review of an entire organisation as large as the city is, but it has been done, and now we're ready, or I'm ready to present those findings of that review. The review was done because of the city's growth and aspirations, which are now starting to place pressure on the existing structure and particularly key roles within the organisation. The CEO and the directors have expansive roles covering many, many functions with many business units attached to them. The CEO and 2 directors have actually absorbed and shouldered the additional functions, which are community development functions, for the past 7 years since we reduced our structure originally from a 4 directorate structure down to a 2 and then a 3 directorate structure back in the middle of the last decade. It's now becoming, with the growth that's going on and the projects and the expansion of services, not sustainable or practical to continue with the current structure that we have in place. The current structure looks like this at the moment. Those business units in green, I have got 2 of them reporting to me. The Development Services Director has 1, Community Safety, reporting to him, and Corporate Services has Economic and Cultural Services. So the drivers for these change, there are 4 key drivers. Resourcing the city to deliver the big picture. I've just explained what the big picture looks like. It's a massive workload coming through the system for this organisation to deliver on. We also need to have address this declining operating surplus ratio, whereby our revenues are not meeting our operating costs, largely to the impact that depreciation is having on this organisation because we have so many assets, so many buildings, so many assets. And when they changed, the law changed in 2016 and moved to fair value depreciation. Our depreciation costs have gone from $6 million to $13 million in the last 6 years. And that sort of money has to be found each year to run our financial statements. So where has that money been coming from? It's been coming through cost cutting. But there is only so much meat on a bone. So that's a big problem that we need to do, and the big picture hopefully will address some of that, and also adjusting the organisation. We also need to ensure we have a responsibility, I and the council, to the health and well-being of all of its employees, and that we're not impinging our employees by having an inadequate structure. And we need to ensure that resources are placed where maximised efficacy and synergies can be gained with minimum impact on our operational budget. So a tall order. An outline of the review process. Well, as I said, it was extensive. I started this journey last year with a workshop with the leadership team where we started to recognise some of the pressure points. We undertook an extensive service review process during December and February, which we presented to councillors in March. A staff announcement was obviously made once council gave me the go-ahead to do this review, to let staff know. We did a community perception survey to see what the community thought about our services. We also did consultation with senior staff. We did a staff perception survey. We did benchmarking of other local governments, analysis of feedback, and then compiled the findings into the report that is before council this month. There are 2 main structural changes. The first structural change is to create a community engagement directorate and to transfer all customer and community facing services under the control of that director. The second structural change will be to create a strategic projects resource director, a high-level person that is going to take carriage of the big picture strategic community plan in terms of coordinating, delivering, managing, overseeing the contracts, etc. And that position can be funded out of the grant funding that we have obtained through our advocacy project. So that would be a cost-neutral position. We're also doing some changes within the asset services team where we want to create a service unit that just focuses on waste in particularly and fleet, given the significant changes that will be occurring in this city over the next 12 months to 2 years as we move our way from landfill operations to waste to energy to FOGO, food, organics and green waste, and we change the way that we do business in terms of getting to a very low zero waste to landfill position. So there will be some minor changes in the business units as well. So the recommendation really is for council to adopt a 4-directorate model, and this is basically the model that was in situ prior to 2011. This was a functional structure that the city did have prior to 2011 in place. Questions?
Councillors, I remind you not to ask questions about the confidential part. Are there any questions? There are no questions. That ends our public agenda briefing.
No, you've missed one out, 10.4.3.
Oh,
the payment of the conference.
Through the chair, I
There's no
don't have
pre-
a presentation on that. It's very
Okay, so that's
straightforward.
okay.
I
Yeah,
should have just said we had
Yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
presentation.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you,
just
councillor
clarifies
Billich.
that. Thank you.
It will just go straight to the OCM. Thank you very much, councillors. I declare this meeting closed at 7:25. Thank you.